From humiliation to heroism, delivery guy falsely accused by rich teens. Have you ever felt the crushing weight of an unjust accusation? Today, we're diving into the heart-wrenching story of a delivery guy who faced humiliation at the hands of privileged teenagers. What happens next is a journey of resilience and unexpected heroism. Meet Carlos, a hard-working delivery driver in his mid-30s. Carlos had always been a pillar of his community, known for his diligence and honesty. Living in a modest apartment with his wife Maria and their 2 young children, he took pride in providing for his family. Each morning, he donned his worn-out uniform and set out on his trusty scooter, navigating the bustling streets to deliver packages and food orders to a diverse range of customers. Carlos's dedication to his job stemmed from his dream of giving his children a better life. He often worked late into the night, braving all kinds of weather to ensure timely deliveries. His colleagues respected him, and his customers appreciated his cheerful demeanor and reliability. Despite the challenges, Carlos remained optimistic, believing that his hard work would eventually pay off. On one particular day, Carlos received an order from an upscale neighborhood. The sprawling mansions and luxury cars starkly contrasted with his humble lifestyle, but he approached each delivery with the same level of professionalism. This order was for the Martins, a wealthy family known for their extravagant parties and influential social circle. Unbeknownst to Carlos, this delivery would become a turning point in his life. As Carlos approached the grand entrance of the Martins' mansion, he noticed a group of teenagers lounging by the pool. They were the Martins' children and their friends, all dressed in designer clothes, laughing and chatting loudly. Carlos greeted them politely, but his presence seemed to amuse them. They exchanged glances and whispered among themselves, clearly enjoying some inside joke at his expense. Carlos handed over the food, and as he turned to leave, one of the teenagers, Ethan, called out, "Hey, wait a minute! Something's missing." Carlos stopped in his tracks, confused. He had double-checked the order before leaving the restaurant. "What do you mean?" Carlos asked, turning back to face the group. Ethan, with a smug grin, pointed to the bags. "There's supposed to be a box of chocolates. It's not here. Did you take it?" Carlos's heart skipped a beat. He knew he hadn't taken anything. "No, sir. I delivered everything that was given to me." The teenagers exchanged knowing looks, and another boy, Liam, chimed in, "Yeah, right? How about you empty your pockets?" Carlos felt a wave of indignation and humiliation wash over him. He was being accused of theft, something he would never even dream of. Trying to maintain his composure, he emptied his pockets, revealing only his phone and a few coins. The group burst into laughter. "Maybe he hid it somewhere else," one of the girls suggested with a malicious gleam in her eye. Carlos's face burned with shame and frustration. He was a hard-working man with a reputation for honesty. He never took anything that didn't belong to him. To be treated like a common thief by these privileged teenagers was a slap in the face. But he knew that arguing would only make things worse. "Can I talk to your parents?" Carlos asked, hoping that an adult would understand and believe him. Ethan's smirk widened. "Oh, you want to bother my dad? He's busy. But sure, let's go." They led Carlos into the house, and he was struck by the opulence. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and expensive artwork adorned every corner. It was a stark contrast to his own modest home. The feeling of being out of place intensified with each step. Mr. Martin, a tall, imposing man in his 40s, was in his study. He looked up from his desk, clearly annoyed by the interruption. "What is it, Ethan?" Ethan explained the situation, painting Carlos as a thief who had likely stolen the chocolates. Mr. Martin's expression hardened as he listened. "Is this true?" Mr. Martin asked, directing his stern gaze at Carlos. "No, sir. I swear, I didn't take anything," Carlos replied, his voice trembling. Mr. Martin sighed, clearly annoyed by the inconvenience. "Look, I don't have time for this. If something's missing, I'll have to report it." "What's your name?" "Carlos," he answered, feeling a surge of panic. "All right, Carlos. I'll be contacting your employer about this. We can't have dishonest people delivering to our home. Carlos's world shattered. He knew what a complaint from a wealthy client could mean for his job. The teenagers smirked, satisfied with the chaos they had caused. With a heavy heart, Carlos rode back to the delivery hub, his mind racing with worry. When he arrived, his supervisor, Mr. Rodriguez, was already waiting for him. "Carlos, I've received a call from Mr. Martin. He claims you stole from their delivery. Is this true?" Carlos shook his head vehemently. "No, Mr. Rodriguez. I didn't take anything. They set me up." Mr. Rodriguez studied him for a moment before nodding. "I believe you, Carlos. You've always been honest. But this is serious. We can't afford to lose clients like the Martins. I'll have to suspend you until we can sort this out." The suspension hit Carlos hard. His income was the lifeline for his family, and without it, they would struggle to make ends meet. He returned home, trying to explain the situation to Maria, who listened with tears in her eyes but unwavering support. Days turned into weeks, and Carlos's attempts to clear his name seemed futile. The Martins' influence was far-reaching, and no one wanted to cross them. Meanwhile, the teenagers continued their lavish lifestyle, completely oblivious to the damage they had caused. One evening, Carlos received a call from an unknown number. It was Ethan. "Hey, delivery guy, how's the unemployment line?" Ethan's voice dripped with mockery. "Why are you doing this?" Carlos asked, frustration evident in his voice. "Because we can," Ethan replied nonchalantly. "And no one will believe you anyway." Carlos hung up, feeling a mix of anger and helplessness. He realized that to restore his life and dignity, he would have to take matters into his own hands. The laughter echoed in Carlos's ears as he stood there, feeling smaller with each passing second. The teenagers seemed to revel in his discomfort, their privileged upbringing shielding them from understanding the gravity of their actions. Just as Carlos was about to leave, Ethan's father, Mr. Martin, appeared at the doorway. "What's going on here?" Mr. Martin's authoritative voice silenced the group. Ethan quickly explained the situation, painting Carlos as the culprit. Mr. Martin's stern gaze shifted to Carlos, who felt a lump form in his throat. "Is this true?" Mr. Martin asked. "No, sir. I didn't take anything," Carlos replied, his voice trembling. Mr. Martin sighed, clearly annoyed by the inconvenience. "Look, I don't have time for this. If something's missing, I'll have to report it." "What's your name?" "Carlos," he answered, feeling a surge of panic. "All right, Carlos. I'll be contacting your employer about this. We can't have dishonest people delivering to our home." Carlos's world shattered. He knew what a complaint from a wealthy client could mean for his job. The teenagers smirked, satisfied with the chaos they had caused. With a heavy heart, Carlos rode back to the delivery hub, his mind racing with worry. When he arrived, his supervisor, Mr. Rodriguez, was already waiting for him. "Carlos, I've received a call from Mr. Martin. He claims you stole from their delivery. Is this true?" Carlos shook his head vehemently. "No, Mr. Rodriguez. I didn't take anything. They set me up." Mr. Rodriguez studied him for a moment before nodding. "I believe you, Carlos. You've always been honest. But this is serious. We can't afford to lose clients like the Martins. I'll have to suspend you until we can sort this out." The suspension hit Carlos hard. His income was the lifeline for his family, and without it, they would struggle to make ends meet. He returned home, trying to explain the situation to Maria, who listened with tears in her eyes but unwavering support. Days turned into weeks, and Carlos's attempts to clear his name seemed futile. The Martins' influence was far-reaching, and no one wanted to cross them. Meanwhile, the teenagers continued their lavish lifestyle, completely oblivious to the damage they had caused. One evening, Carlos received a call from an unknown number. It was Ethan. "Hey, delivery guy, how's the unemployment line?" Ethan's voice dripped with mockery. "Why are you doing this?" Carlos asked, frustration evident in his voice. "Because we can," Ethan replied nonchalantly. "And no one will believe you anyway." Carlos hung up, feeling a mix of anger and helplessness. He realized that to restore his life and dignity, he would have to take matters into his own hands. Determined to clear his name, Carlos began gathering evidence. He spoke to the restaurant from where he picked up the order, hoping their security cameras might have recorded the exchange. After a few days of persuasion, the manager agreed to help. Together, they reviewed the footage, and to Carlos's relief, it clearly showed him picking up the correct items and no chocolates in sight. Armed with this evidence, Carlos returned to his employer. Mr. Rodriguez reviewed the footage and agreed to help Carlos present it to the Martins. They arranged a meeting with Mr. Martin, who seemed skeptical but agreed to watch the video. As the footage played, Mr. Martin's expression shifted from doubt to realization. "It seems there was a mistake," he admitted reluctantly. "I'll retract my complaint." Carlos felt a wave of relief, but he knew this wasn't enough. "Your son and his friends need to understand the damage they've done," he said firmly. Mr. Martin nodded. "I'll speak to them." However, when Carlos returned to work, he found that the stigma of the accusation still lingered. Some colleagues looked at him differently, and a few customers canceled their orders, citing concerns about theft. Despite being cleared, the damage to his reputation was significant. Maria supported him through this difficult period, encouraging him to stay strong for their family. Carlos took on odd jobs to make ends meet, from cleaning houses to repairing bikes, while continuing his delivery work whenever possible. Each day was a struggle, but he refused to give up. One evening, while Carlos was fixing a neighbor's bike, he received a call from Mr. Rodriguez. "Carlos, we have an emergency delivery, and everyone else is unavailable. Can you take it?" Without hesitation, Carlos agreed. He saw this as an opportunity to rebuild his reputation. The delivery was to a charity event organized by a local community center. Carlos arrived promptly, his professionalism intact despite the hardships he faced. As he handed over the packages, he noticed a familiar face among the volunteers. It was Mrs. Martinez, a prominent community leader who had always been kind to him. She recognized Carlos and inquired about his well-being. Touched by her concern, Carlos shared his story. Moved by his plight, Mrs. Martinez decided to help. She organized a community meeting and invited the Martins, including the teenagers. At the meeting, Carlos presented his side of the story, supported by the video evidence. The community, shocked by the teenagers' actions, rallied behind Carlos. Ethan and his friends, confronted by the community's outrage, were forced to apologize publicly. The humiliation they intended for Carlos now backfired, and they faced severe consequences from their families and the community. The Martins, embarrassed by their children's behavior, offered Carlos compensation and a formal apology. Carlos began to see a glimmer of hope. His community's support was overwhelming, but he knew his journey was far from over. Rebuilding his life and reputation would take time, and the memories of the unjust accusations still haunted him. However, he was determined to rise above it all and prove his worth. As weeks turned into months, Carlos's hard work started to pay off. He became known not just as a delivery guy, but as a symbol of resilience and integrity in his community. People admired his perseverance and the way he handled adversity with grace. Carlos started volunteering at the community center, helping others who faced similar challenges. His story became an inspiration, a testament to the power of determination and community support. Just as Carlos thought things were getting back on track, another storm hit. One night, as he was returning from a late delivery, he noticed smoke rising from his apartment building. Panic gripped him as he realized his family was inside. He rushed towards the building, only to be held back by firefighters who were already on the scene. "Sir, it's too dangerous," one of the firefighters shouted. "My family is in there," Carlos cried out, desperate to reach Maria and the kids. The next few minutes felt like an eternity. Firefighters worked tirelessly to control the blaze and rescue the trapped residents. Carlos's heart pounded in his chest as he waited for any news. Finally, he saw Maria and their children being led out by the firefighters, coughing but safe. He ran to them, embracing them tightly, tears of relief streaming down his face. The fire had caused extensive damage, leaving many families, including Carlos's, homeless. They lost almost everything they owned, their apartment reduced to charred remains. The community, still reeling from the recent events, quickly mobilized to help the affected families. Donations poured in and temporary shelters were arranged. Despite the overwhelming support, Carlos felt the weight of yet another disaster. His savings were nearly depleted, and the prospect of starting over seemed daunting. Maria, ever his pillar of strength, encouraged him to stay hopeful. "We have each other, Carlos. We'll rebuild our lives together." Determined to rise again, Carlos took on more jobs, working long hours to save money for a new home. The community continued to support him, with many people offering help and resources. Slowly, they began to piece their lives back together. One day, while Carlos was working at a construction site, he received a call from Mrs. Martinez. "Carlos, I have good news. The community has raised enough funds to help you buy a new home." Carlos was overwhelmed with gratitude. "Thank you so much. This means everything to us." The community's generosity allowed Carlos and his family to move into a new apartment. Though it was modest, it was a fresh start. Carlos's reputation was restored, and he was once again a respected member of the community. The Martins, feeling responsible for Carlos's hardships, also contributed to the fund, further mending the rift caused by their children's actions. The fire had been a devastating blow, but it also brought the community closer together. People rallied around Carlos and his family, showing an outpouring of love and support. It was a reminder that even in the darkest times, there is light to be found in the kindness of others. Carlos worked tirelessly to repay the kindness shown to him. He volunteered at the community center, helped organize charity events, and became a mentor to younger delivery workers. His story spread beyond his neighborhood, and local news outlets picked it up, highlighting the power of community support in overcoming adversity. The Martins, realizing the extent of the damage caused by their children, made significant donations to the fire victims and supported Carlos's advocacy for workers' rights. Their involvement in the community deepened, and they worked alongside Carlos in various initiatives. Ethan and his friends, who had once tormented Carlos, underwent a transformation. They volunteered at the community center, helped with rebuilding efforts, and participated in awareness campaigns about the importance of integrity and kindness. They learned firsthand the impact of their actions and dedicated themselves to making amends. Through sheer determination and the unwavering support of his family and community, Carlos overcame the twin challenges of false accusations and losing his home to a fire. The experience, though harrowing, taught him invaluable lessons about resilience, the power of community, and the importance of integrity. Carlos continued his delivery work, his dedication and honesty earning him more respect than ever before. He also became an advocate for fair treatment of workers, speaking out against the injustices faced by those in low-paying jobs. His story inspired many, showing that even in the face of adversity, one can rise above and emerge stronger. The Martins, humbled by their experience, became active supporters of Carlos's advocacy, using their influence to promote fair labor practices. Ethan and his friends, having learned a hard lesson, also changed their ways, becoming more mindful of their actions and their impact on others. Carlos's journey from humiliation to heroism was a testament to the human spirit's resilience. He proved that no matter how dire the circumstances, with perseverance and community support, one can overcome even the greatest challenges. Carlos's newfound purpose gave him a sense of fulfillment that transcended his personal struggles. He organized workshops for delivery drivers, teaching them about their rights and how to protect themselves from unfair treatment. He also worked with local businesses to ensure fair wages and better working conditions for all employees. His efforts caught the attention of national advocacy groups, and Carlos was invited to speak at conferences and events. His story was shared widely, inspiring others to take action in their communities. He received numerous awards for his contributions to worker rights and community building. Carlos's life had transformed in ways he could never have imagined. From being humiliated and falsely accused, he had risen to become a respected leader and advocate. His journey was a powerful reminder that even in the face of tremendous adversity, one can find the strength to rise, inspire change, and make a lasting impact. Carlos's story is a powerful reminder of the strength of the human spirit. From being falsely accused and humiliated to losing his home, he faced tremendous adversity with courage and determination. Through the support of his family and community, he not only rebuilt his life but also inspired others to stand up for justice and integrity. If you found Carlos's journey as inspiring as we did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories of resilience and triumph. Until next time, stay inspired.